Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler here, and today we're going back to basics, looking at a 15th century munition bow loaded by a goat's foot lever. But this is a special one because it is the most powerful goat's foot lever bow that I have ever made. So, first up, better shoot the thing. So you may notice, if you watch this channel or you're familiar with my products, this is quite a long lever. And that is because this is around about 600 pounds in draw weight. And that means it shoots like a train. The goat's foot lever came in the late 14th century, and it was a fantastically useful, fantastically powerful and quick device for spanning crossbows. Windlass had been around for a while by then on the heavy siege bows. I'm actually not sure if it was battlefield use. But then also the Cranaquin came in around about the same time as this. Now the Cranaquin and the windlass can span far heavier bows than this can, but it comes at a speed disadvantage. This is about 10 seconds a shot, maybe even less. Cranaquin or a windlass, if you are going like a nutter, 45, 50 seconds, but that's not a pace that you can keep up for very long. Now these lighter bows, of course, they have a power disadvantage, but they have a massive speed advantage. And just like in modern warfare, you want both things. So these continued into use through the 15th century, 16th century, even into the 17th century with the border reivers, particularly in Northern England and Scotland, maybe in other parts of Europe too. But also they carried on for sport, well, hunting and sport, all the way through into the early 20th century. You could still buy bows powered by goat's foot levers. And the thing is, they're fantastically powerful and fantastically versatile and simple. So this bow here is a 400-pound bow. Too powerful for me to span by hand. I could do it with a belt, just about with the doubler pulley. Most people probably couldn't. It's a difficult thing. With the goat's foot lever, I've got it now on full draw on one finger. It is an amazing device. But I'll just show you that, how it works. Basically, you have got these lever arms here and it picks up on the pin here, hook in the string. Now, the more you pull it back, the more it increases the advantage on the lever. So as the bow gets more powerful, it doesn't feel that much worse on the lever itself. So you can put it all the way back, span it, it's not a problem at all. And it shoots not quite as powerfully as the other. You've probably been watching that and saying, well, the bow springs look basically the same. How do I know Todd's not lying about the poundages? You don't. If you're familiar with this channel, you know I don't lie. It's just not worth it. I just tell it the way it is. But it's a simple thing, really. And if we look at these, there is actually a difference. But this one in my left hand here, where my thumb's moving, it's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit thicker, right? Now the thing is, the power of a spring goes up as a cube with its thickness. What that means in normal English is a tiny little bit of thickness addition makes a massive difference to how powerful the spring is. And that's all this is. A little bit deeper, a little bit thicker, but it just gives you an enormous power difference. If we come back now to the heavy bow, the 600-pounder, I can actually span this with a regular goat's foot lever, regular length arm on it. It is possible, but it is hard work. None of us likes hard work. So that's obviously why we have a longer lever on this one. It makes it possible, makes it easily possible. But if you look at this, not only is it a longer lever, we have a crossbar here. And that means that you can span it in two different ways. So you can span it in the same way that we did before, and that works, obviously, just fine. That's a method that seems to be associated more, well, with England as far as I know. But if you look at Italian manuscripts, they do this, and they put it this way up. And what's interesting about that is it seems to be a more powerful way of spanning the bow. But also, you can do that using the stirrup. And that now explains partly the presence of the stirrup. because of course this bow is far more powerful than you could ever draw with that, even with the spanning belt. So you don't need a foot stirrup on it, you just don't. But actually, it helps you when you're spanning the bow. Just at the start here, you can lodge it on and you can turn it around, because at the moment, it's a bit weird and awkward. But now I can push away with the stirrup, I can pull back with the top of the stock, we're in, and we're ready to go again. Oh, there we go. Actually, just pick that one up. A nice wood-fletched bodkin. And then one thing that always comes up actually is, how do you shoot downwards with a crossbow? And it is actually a really simple thing, because it might seem very difficult, because of course you put the bolt on, it falls out. What happens if your head is too heavy for the bow? Well, let's pretend that head's too heavy. You just pop your thumb here like this, and it skids out from under it. Still got my thumb. This sort of munition bow, it's a utility bow. There's no frills, there's nothing pretty about it. It's all about use. Long, thin, straight stock works really well with the goat's foot lever. And these were favoured basically in Western Europe. And then you get the fancier styles, like this one here, which is much more favoured in sort of the Germanic lands, Bohemia and so on. Works much better with the Craniquin. But what it does mean is all of the money was put into making these things function, not into the decoration, which either means you have a better functioning object or you have more of them. Now, the Germans certainly knew how to use crossbows, so I think the answer is quite simply that you got more for your money. Straightforward enough. But talking of which, let's go find out what it does down on the range. So we're down on the range now, and I think probably the first thing is to have a look at the speed difference between the different weapons. I mentioned earlier about Craniquin and windlass bows, and it would be good to see how they fare. So of course, starting with a bolt on the deck, and we'll just time it down and see how we do. Fine, so we're going centre again. And that one was about 2 inches below the centre. Oh, I wish I had a servant right about now. I don't actually know how much the Craniquin weighs, but probably about 4 or 5 kilos. So 8, 9 pounds, something like that. Yep. No, all good. Just the Craniquin slipping on the stock. Set the trigger. And there we have it. So I got my 4 shots off in about the time that you get 1 shot from a Craniquin or a windlass. First was a little low, second 2, bang on target, third one a little bit high. But I suppose the point is, crossbows are just inherently accurate. And if I'd picked my aim, I would have done better than that. But that, I can tell you, I'm afraid to say, is better than I would do with the longbow at this range. A common misconception about these bows is because they have a very high draw weight. People think, especially if they're modern archers, that these things are going to shoot through tanks and castles and who knows what. But the point is, you actually have a very short draw length. It's only around 4.5 inches, about 135 millimeters. Very typical for this kind of size bow of the medieval period. You have heavy steel limbs on here. That means they've got an awful lot of inertia. So effectively, you have a system here which is inherently incredibly inefficient. And that's why they had to run to really high poundages. There's some of the German Craniquin bows which have got to be nudging 2,000 pounds in draw weight. They're just epically big. But in modern terms, again, a modern crossbow archer could probably drop a deer quite happily, well, not for the deer, with 100 pounds, right? You can't do that with a medieval bow. So the bolt speeds are very different as well. Now this has a maximum speed that the spring will return back at, and the bolt cannot go any faster than that, even if it was a grain of rice. So the bolt speeds of a medieval bow are slow, but what they do is shift heavy things in a way that a modern bow doesn't do so well. So they really are not the sports car that a modern bow is, but more of a truck, a semi, call it what you want. That's what these things are. So let's talk through the loading process again one last time so you can see it all in the open. So you pick up your bow, you rotate the nut so the teeth are forward like this, below the surface of the deck, because it is in fact the goat's foot lever coming back and engaging the trigger that sets the nut. So you put the nut into the forward position. It's the same with either way you load it. You take the goat's foot lever. I hook my little finger onto this string hook here, and that just keeps it into the right position. You lock it onto the string, and the little returns at the bottom of the lever just lock it in place there. Take my left hand, hold it at the stock, not with my fingers over the top, because if you get a trigger failure for any reason, your fingers are going to be in the way of the goat's foot. The goat's foot becomes the projectile. So you hold it down here. This goes in the corner of your thigh and your torso. Pull back and down. Here it engages solidly and positively. Remove the lever and you're ready to go. When you pull the trigger, the nut rotates around really fast. Hold the trigger down until the nut stops spinning. And what you want to do is hold it like a gun, because what you've got here is a couple of kilos of steel going forward really fast. What that means, Newton's laws, equal and opposite, you get a kick. And now we'll try the other way of loading. Tends to be a bit easier, but you put your finger on the hook again, hook it onto the string, back down. You can now turn it around, put that in the crease of your thigh and your torso, little push on the stirrup, pull with the stock, back around, and we're in. That comes off, and you shoot exactly as you did before. Personally, I find that a little bit easier for these heavyweight bows. For the 400 pound, 450, anything lower than that, just a regular lever's easier. Little less palaver. So that's it really. What can we conclude from that? Well, goat's foot, it's a powerful tool. It lets you span a man-killing bow, a deer-killing bow, quickly and easily, far faster than other methods. Other methods, you'll get more power out of it. But for light, quick, relatively effective shooting, nothing can beat a heavy goat's foot bow. And especially now that I've done a heavier one, I'm quite excited about that, I'll do more. Big 600 pounders, they really are a thing. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon page if that's your kind of thing, and we can do more of these films and other big investigations and stuff like that. Anyway, see you again. Bye.